Have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? Had an idea that you were very passionate about and wanted to share it with the world? When I was trying to get this podcast off the ground, I had a lot of questions too. How do I record an episode? How do I get my show into all the apps people like to listen to? How do I make money on my podcast? The answer to every one of these questions is really simple. Anchor. Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcast. Best of all, it's 100% free and ridiculously easy to use. And now, Anchor can match you with great sponsors who want to advertise on your podcast. That means you can get paid to podcast right away. In fact, that's what I'm doing right now by reading this ad. Anchor's been really easy to use. I can create, edit, and distribute my podcast seamlessly. The experience has been great, and I can't believe I waited this long to start a podcast. So if you always wanted to start a podcast and make money doing it, go to anchor.fm/start. That's anchor.fm/start to join me and the diverse community of podcasters already using Anchor. That's anchor.fm/start. Can't wait to hear your podcast. What is up, podcast peeps? You're listening to the 228 podcast. My name's Patrick. I'm your host. And we're going to get down to some nitty-gritty. Not really nitty-gritty. But on the last podcast, if you haven't listened to it, it was a call to action. Tonight, on the drive home, we're going to talk about taking action. Or maybe even the small steps to overnight success. Now, sometimes you hear stories about people making money overnight. They were overnight success. It happened overnight. It's bullshit. It's total bullshit. But what is happening is that behind the scenes, when no one's paying attention, and that business person is taking one step at a time, every single day, every single week, every single month, every single year, they take a step in the right direction. And it's never massive steps. Anybody tells you that it was overnight success, it's total bullshit. Stop listening to them immediately. But what is truthful is that it's a process, and it takes small steps every single day, every single minute, every single hour to get you to your end goal, whatever that end goal may be. If you continue to make those positive steps, you'll walk a foot, and then a yard, and then a mile, and then 2 miles, and it just keeps accumulating and accumulating till you get to your end goal. Now, what does that look like? What is the steps that you take? Well, it just depends on what you're interested in and what you're going to do. You obviously, if you've gotten to the point where you've figured out who you are, you've got a good mental picture of where you want to be and what your end goal is, you just walk to that goal. You just take that step. You take a step. You take a step. You take a step. And pretty soon you're halfway to that goal. And then pretty soon you're to that goal. It's just taking action, small steps at a time, and being patient. Because, like I said, there's no overnight success. It may look like overnight because all of a sudden, oh my goodness, I have success. It's great. It's awesome. But it doesn't show the process that took place beforehand. And I'm kind of reminded about some basketball players. I used to play basketball. It used to be a love of mine. And man, I can tell you, I spent hours and hours and hours on end playing basketball, shooting a basketball, doing the small stuff that counted. And I'm going to relate this to Kobe Bryant. Wasn't my favorite player, but he had impeccable work ethic. When nobody else was on the court, he was shooting thousands upon thousands of baskets. He was practicing. His practice routine was stuff of legend. Hey, this man, if he wasn't sleeping, he was practicing. He was on the court shooting. He was dribbling. He was doing all the fundamentals that you needed to be a champion. And I think the only person that really I've ever heard of that was as crazy and had so much drive and so much motivation and so much work ethic would be Michael Jordan. But even Michael Jordan's like, man, that guy was crazy. He put in a lot of work to get where he was at. Even before he went to the Lakers, when he got drafted, his work ethic was just stuff of crazy myth. It was just unbelievable. But he wasn't an overnight success. I mean, it wasn't an overnight success. It may have seemed like it was overnight because he gets drafted by the Lakers and just explodes. Same thing with LeBron James. But nobody sees the small steps that they're taking to get to that point. Nobody saw, well, they kind of documented LeBron James in high school, but what about the days that he wasn't playing basketball or they weren't filming him at games? Same thing with Kobe. One of my favorite players, and he might still be in the league, Vince Carter. Vince Carter was, he was an animal. And nobody knows the backstory or the things that happened before to get them there. All the time they were playing ball, all the time they were, practicing. Nobody sees that. Nobody sees the reps that you take. So if you want to become an overnight success, you have to take the small steps to do it. It doesn't matter if it's shooting out that extra email, talking to somebody, making that extra phone call, making an extra sale, showing somebody how to use whatever widget or product that you're selling, or making a video for that product, or going around the neighborhood, informing people, just delivering content. The other day, I'll give you a prime example. Whenever I was setting up all the links to these podcasts, which I do whenever I get home, when I get up the next day, I'll fix all the links in the podcast, put it on my website. That way I have the backlink to those emails, to the podcast, and set up the links there. It's just the little things, the little tweaks, the little improvements every day, on a day-by-day basis, on a week-by-week basis, on a month-by-month, snowballs. And that's just a lot like growing a business and making a business grow, is the snowball effect. Anybody I've ever heard or talked to, mostly listened to, because I listen to other podcasts as well, they all say about the same thing. It's like compound interest, but it's compound actions. It's compound revenue. It's compound capital. These things, in order to make something gigantic, you have to start off with a small snowball and roll it down a hill. And as it gets faster, as it gets better, it gets bigger. So you get the biggest snowball by the time it hits the bottom of the hill. So, what do you need to do in order to take the small steps, or recognize that you have to progress forward every day? Well, this is kind of stupid. I'll be honest with you. I'm sitting here trying to figure out how to get the sponsorship break in the middle of this podcast. It's just not going to work out. So if you're doing a podcast, maybe later on, when I get to sit down and actually do the podcast at home, which I'm probably going to do because you can hear the background sound of me driving, I'll start doing it at home and maybe breaking them up there and changing the format a little bit. But you know what? Screw it. I'll just put it in the front and be done with it. So, what's the steps that you can take to take the action to be a successful overnight success? 1, the things that you do in your normal day-to-day, you have to do them to the best of your ability. Because what that does is it builds the confidence in you to move forward. And there's a saying, you do, how's it go? Everything you do, I'm gonna mess this up. How you do one thing is how you do everything. There it is. So, everything you do, make it impeccable. Make it the best that you can possibly make it. If you're ironing a shirt, make the shirt look ironed to the best of its ability or your ability. If you go out and, mow the grass, I say these things because, be honest with you, the career that I'm in, I don't like to be around people, which is a shame. I just want quiet because I work in a hospitality industry, and that's the only thing I can really compare it to. I'm a stay-at-home dad. I mean, what do you think? Or I'm not a stay-at-home dad, but I stay at home. But I've made, while I'm home, I made this website. I've tried to make it the best that I can. The social media, I'm trying to make it the best that I can make it. And I do something every day with it. And if you haven't gone to the website, please visit the website. There's some really cool things on there right now. And there's also a lot of really cool things on the Facebook page, because it's really easy to grab a link from somewhere that you see or something that you find and post it on Facebook on the desktop. It makes it real easy to share stuff. Like the CEO of Porsche or who's the CEO of Lamborghini. How do they change the oil in a Bugatti Chiron? How you say it? Chiron or something? Excuse me. So there's some really cool stuff, but it's every single day I'm doing something to move me forward, move the needle, at least tick the needle, make it jump a little bit. So posting, sharing, getting content out, just that one step, the next step tomorrow, whenever I'm done recording this podcast, is when I get up, because I'm going home and I'm going to bed, when I get up, adding the links to this podcast, putting the podcast on the website, adding the links there, all the shares and follows, and that's part of the gig. That's what you have to do. And the process is funny because once you start taking those steps, you start making processes up to simplify what you're doing. And I guess that's the second point of this whole deal is as you keep taking steps, you realize that you're taking the steps. Things could work easier if I did this, or it makes more sense to do it this way. When I get up, put the links in, share everything, it just goes real quick. So I'm really refining the process of doing this whole podcast and distributing it. and really trying to get it down. So I hope it works out all good. But yeah, so keep taking steps every day. Doesn't matter if you don't see any improvement or not. Keep taking those steps. And I promise you, after 6 months, after a year, after 2 years, you will see tremendous improvement. It will be night and day. You got to do it though. That's the steps to overnight success. Thank you for listening. Talk to you later. Bye.